this part of my podcast is I'm opening up Bookstore in the East Village in New York, and kind of talking to different people along the way, basically just to get advice. And get different perspectives. Andy Hunter, the founder and CEO of Bookshop.org, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
So I don't even know how I stumbled upon you guys, but I feel like it must have been right around when COVID happened. Is that right? When did you guys launch?
We launched on January 28th of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just for the listeners who don't know, Bookshop is basically it's like going to Amazon.com for books, but instead of ordering it from Amazon, and maybe Andy explains exactly how the logistics work, but a local independent bookstore fulfills the order instead, and therefore makes the profit on it. So what made you choose to do this?
Well, first of all, I'm a book lover. Books have kind of saved my life and been super important to me throughout my life. And I have huge respect for what they can do, not only to individuals, but also to culture and society. So I became a publisher about 5 years ago, and I've been doing a lot of online publishing. I started a website called Electric Literature and another website called Literary Hub, which are both very popular websites that deal with books. And I became increasingly concerned with what would happen to the culture around books if one single player began to completely dominate all of the ecosystem around books. And that player, of course, is Amazon, which has now reached about 50% of all consumer book sales in the US. And I just became worried about the bookstores because bookstores are extremely important to the ecosystem. They're, only maybe 15% of the book economy, but they are where authors get discovered and start their careers and connect with their fans. They're places of activism and endorsement and proponents of books and reading in their communities, and they're just really important for the grassroots effect of keeping books relevant to our culture and keeping people reading. And I don't want them all to die off. So I started to think about how we could create something that would help those stores compete with Amazon for online sales, because e-commerce, as you probably know, grows at a rate of about 10% year over year for the past 10 years. And so more and more people are buying stuff online. If local, small, independent businesses don't get online sales strategies and don't figure out how to meet their customers there, they're going to have a lot of trouble surviving. And so I just wanted to try to help bookstores survive.
Got it. So when you started talking to local bookstores, independent bookstores about it, what was the reaction?
Well, in the beginning, I think it was split between people who were very enthusiastic and were like, we've been waiting for something like this for a long time, and people who had been so burnt by technology and e-commerce and Amazon's rise in general that they kind of took a reflectively hostile or skeptical outlook towards any kind of digital innovation and startup culture and all of that. Like they're just sort of think of it as an enemy. And I think part of my mission really with all my projects has been to use the tools and the whole world and distribution network that's afforded by digital, which is incredibly powerful, obviously, and can reach millions and millions of people, and use those to actually promote and preserve the culture that I love, which is the culture around books and reading. And a lot of people in that culture think of like YouTube, Twitter, video games, Twitch, TikTok as all like distractions and kind of the enemy, the things that are taking people's attention away from books. And I just want to use all of those tools to promote books and to get people more involved in reading and keep books a really lively part of those discussions, because that's where readers are now. That's where everybody is now, is online, especially in the pandemic. And so you've got to meet people where they are.
And how have some of those bookstores that were initially opposed come around, or are they still kind of watching and waiting?
I think most of them have come around. I think in the US, we probably have 80% support. There are still some skeptics that are, afraid that they're just afraid to rely too much on a third party, especially on a third party who's using digital sales and all of that. But they're, I think that the vast majority of them have been convinced because we've brought $7.5 million into the independent bookstore ecosystem just in the past 6 months, and I think we have the potential to bring in 40 or $50 million a year into that ecosystem, which would make a huge difference in the sustainability of those businesses.
Yeah, for sure. So logistically, when I place an order, it just geolocates the nearest independent bookstore to where I am, sends them the order, and then do they send it out, or do you guys send it out?
No, it's much simpler than that, actually. It goes straight to a wholesaler. So Ingram is the largest wholesaler of books in the US. They're the only place that could match Amazon's inventory, and they're the only place that can match Amazon's shipping times. They've got warehouses all over the country. They can ship a book out the same day if the order comes in before noon. And that's what customers are used to. They're used to having stuff that they want in stock, and they're used to getting it fast. And so our model was to skip the stores, actually. Even though you buy it from a store, the order goes directly to the wholesaler. The wholesaler is the one who ships it to your door. The store gets the profit, the wholesaler fulfills the order. And that model,
Like just like affiliate marketing, basically. They're not.
yeah, the stores are all affiliates. Legally, they're all affiliates too, which is great for them because they don't have to pay sales tax and worry about the details of if they were the seller of record. And the beautiful thing about it is that during COVID, when people had to lock down, they weren't allowed to go into their stores. They couldn't put their employees at risk by having them go into the stores to fulfill orders. But with Bookshop's model, they were able to sell all their customers that wanted to support them and who were looking for stuff to read during lockdown were able to buy from them. They were able to be supported by their customer base without having to touch a book, without having to open their doors. And so when COVID hit in mid-March, suddenly we had a huge amount of stores onboarding. We went from 250 stores on the platform to 870 stores. There's over 900 now. And it just happened to be the perfect solution at the perfect time.
So now let me give you, as I'm sure every conversation you have with a fan does, my complaints about
Yeah.
the site. One, why is there no app?
Well, it's just a matter of development priorities. As you know, you always want to launch with an MVP, minimal viable
Yep.
product. And our minimum viable product was like, you can buy a book, it appears at your door, the bookstore gets paid. That's what we launched with in January. Since then, we've had to deal with suddenly, like we took 2% of Amazon's market share in 3 months. So we've had to deal with the growth and scaling it and being able to process, in some days, 10,000 orders a day, which that engineering effort has kept our engineers busy. And expanding to the UK has taken a lot of time and all of the details. So we will have an app, but first we needed a stable platform that was able to do the basics, and that's what we started with, and now we're expanding from there.
Why do I have to click so many screens to confirm and place an order?
That's because we're using an out of the box. Well, we started with an out of the box open source e-commerce project, and I have the same frustration. And I've had a design for a single page checkout in my back pocket for the past 9 months, desperate to build it. But checkout is very complicated. It's much more complicated than you think. And so we will have a one-page checkout with Google Pay and Apple Pay, and all of it's super easy. And yeah, we're going to get to that as soon as possible too. And I think that that'll be probably ready by January. Right now, we're doing digital gift cards and gift wrap and all this kind of
Oh, that's
holiday
great, actually. That'll be
stuff.
fun for the holidays. And the last one is, and you can tell I spent too much time on your website. So when I type something into the search bar on the site, in order for me to then order another book, there's no like little X button that just clears the search bar. I've got to like manually delete whatever I wrote and then write something new.
Oh, that's super. That's a very simple and good suggestion.
For your multiple book buyers. And then ultimately, I would imagine it'd be great that as I start typing in a book name, it pops up as opposed to me having to put the whole thing in.
Yeah, autocomplete is on our roadmap, but yeah, clear search is easy to do.
So, first of all, do you think that in the middle of this economy right now, I have any chance at not losing money on a physical independent bookstore?
Well, in year one, you can't really expect to make money, but I think long term, you definitely have a chance. I also love the East Village, and I love bookstores, and I think a lot of people who live in the East Village love bookstores. It's got a great population density, and so and there's a lot of universities around there and all that. So I think that you have a great chance of being successful as long as you have a good landlord and a reasonable rent.
Well, because of COVID, we kind of do, right? That was one of
Yeah.
the one upside is that we're very happy with the space we got and the rent we're paying.
Yeah, I mean, right now foot traffic is pretty weak for stores. Stores like McNally Jackson that have been in New York for a really long time are down like 40%. So it's definitely going to be tough until the pandemic is over. But if you look at it long term, that gives you plenty of time to situate yourself and get everything kind of under control and be ready for growth and build a good e-commerce strategy, build a customer base, build a marketing strategy, and get your name out there and all of that. So I do think it'll be a slower ramp up than it would have been if you weren't launching in the middle of a pandemic. But I think you can use that time to build a really smart marketing plan.
And then, if you were opening a physical independent bookstore instead of a website to help all independent bookstores, based on what you've learned from Bookshop, what would you recommend?
Well, I think you want to build relationships, right? A really good bookstore is a very essential part of the community. So you want to build relationships with schools that are nearby. You could have 40% of your business as an independent bookstore could be with corporate and institutional partners, schools, local government, local businesses. So you can build those relationships and do like bulk orders and all of that. And also you can build relationships with local authors who are going to want to do events, who are going to come in and do signed copies, who will tell their friends to go to your store to pick up their books, and book groups and all of that. Like if you can get as many book clubs as you can, you can do promotions and try to give them merch, give them something free, give them a reason to love your store. And that can spread. Book clubs can be like a big part of it. And so, Sunday reading for kids, all these things that make your store a great part of the community, make the customers love your store, and, just generally benefit everybody. It benefits you because your customers love you and become loyal to you. And it's beneficial to the neighborhood and the culture in the neighborhood because you're doing great activities and you're adding value and richness to the lives of the people who live there.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. I mean, I think we're doing this in large part because it does feel like something nice to do for New York in a time where the city is really hurting. Obviously, this is not a massive economic development project, but we'll create, we think, 6 to 8 jobs. And our thought is to not only have an event space. First of all, there's just I now live in Gramercy, but I lived in the East Village for years and still live near the East Village. And after the St. Mark's bookstore closed, I don't know, a decade ago, whenever it is, nothing's really ever taken its place in the neighborhood. So it seems to me there's always been kind of an unmet need there, so that the community could use it. We got a pretty big space, so our thought also is maybe we're going to build a podcast studio and a dedicated event space that we can just make available to the community to use. So community groups, different local leaders, whatever it is, whether they want to record a podcast or have a meeting, they can use the space for free. So
Yeah.
hopefully those are the kinds of things that A, provide a real service, and then B, build some loyalty. So as we struggle with all the challenges of running a retail business during a pandemic, people will still support us.
Yeah, and you can have fascinating people in to do your podcast who also have books, and you can have them sign books and people can come to see them. They could come to see your conversations live, which you can then edit into podcasts. It can be a really dynamic, creative place that's really inspiring and filled with ideas. And I think a lot of bookstores don't really cater to entrepreneurs and startup culture and stuff like that, like you do. And so you could have a market there too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. Great. Well, look, Andy, thank you for coming on. Thank you for creating Bookshop, and I really, really love using it. And if it's okay with you, I may occasionally, now that I have your email, pick your brain on some of this stuff.
Absolutely. Good luck with it all.
Thank you.
Thank you.